The Met Police have ignored serious sexual allegations against male officers, according to a whistleblower. I'm going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that the Met Police ignored serious sexual allegations against male officers, a whistleblower reveals. Amina Ahmed tells Byline Times that senior management regularly turned a blind eye to allegations of violence, sexual assault, and even rape by her female colleagues against serving officers. Guys, while you're here, before I give my initial thoughts, if you can hit the like button and share across social media so others are notified of this video. We have spoken already in the past on previous videos on this channel about the the issues that are taking place within the Metropolitan Police. It has been confirmed that they are institutionally racist, and once again we are highlighting the failures of the Metropolitan Police and how it needs, and I've spoken about this before and I'm going to repeat it again, guys, because I think it's really important to remind ourselves of this, is that the police, the Metropolitan Police, and police in general here in England specifically, reforming is not working. It's just not working. I keep hearing them saying that they're going to make changes and they're going to make institutional changes and reforming all this, and so that it will be better and it will be in the best interest of the public. And then we still have stories like these coming out, guys, and it's just not. When are people going to get it through their heads that this is not the solution? And for me, the only solution to this at this point, guys, is you have to dissolve this police force. You have to completely dissolve it, and you have to build a new one, and it has to be like in the transition, and it has to be a brand new police force, completely from scratch, built from the ground up, involving the communities in its area, involving the local councils, involving government support, involving one or two ex-senior, highly respected police officers, and you build it from the ground up. And then once you build that one up and that new police force with vigorous and proper training that holds and the independent bodies that holds them to account, independent of the police force, and at the same time, while that builds up, as it builds up that new police force, you dissolve this one, so that at least there is a police out there that can deal with crime. I've spoken about this on several occasions, because it's just falling on deaf ears what's happening with regards to crime in this country. But we are talking about serving police officers here who have been sexually assaulted and allegedly even raped, which is horrific to say the least here, and yet nothing's been reported, nothing's been done about this. This is just inhumane, absolutely inhumane, and I really, it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening, guys. Let's read into it, and I'll give my thoughts as we go along, guys. So a senior female Asian Metropolitan Police whistleblower has told Byline Times that allegations of violence, sexual assault, and even rape made by her female colleagues against serving officers went ignored. Amina Ahmed was revealed last week by this newspaper to have resigned from the force, saying systematic discrimination, racism, and misogyny had damaged her career and mental health. Now, we know that many women in the police force have. There was a story I had that blew up last month at the time of this recording, which about a woman who was forced to strip down to her underwear and got massive compensation. And a lot of people were saying that it was a case that she basically couldn't handle it. And one of the things that no one ever challenged, for all the comments and the views that video got, no one ever challenged the fact that he put the person who trained that female police officer, he put his foot on the back of her neck, when she was on the ground, and not a single person challenged that. Almost to say that they didn't have a problem with that. and yet they totally believe that most of those comments believe the police force in saying, oh, she just couldn't handle it, and yet none of them seem to have missed the one of the bigger points in there, in the fact that he had his foot on the back of her neck, and nobody challenged that. Nobody had an opinion on that. Just putting that out there. In her resignation letter, Mrs Ahmed referred to how, following the murder of Sarah Everard by serving officers Wayne Couzens in March 2021, the Met had organised listening groups attended by senior management to empower staff to speak out openly about the issues they had faced in the workforce. According to Ahmed, a Muslim leadership facilitator who won praise for her role, attempted to improve diversity in the Met, who made the serious allegations of discrimination and even criminality in the safe space meetings were patronised, ignored, and even ostracised. Why? Yeah, how? It's just ridiculous. This is. She claims she was warned by one female colleague to keep quiet about allegations made in the listening groups that the force has among its senior ranks of racist and misogynist Freemasons. Now the Met's failure to act on complaints is, said Ahmed, a data analysis who has done significant research into the attrition rates that in the Met using its own internal figures, leading female and ethnic minority police staff to leave the organisation in their drones. In her first interview since leaving her job without a payoff to protect her mental health, Ahmed told Byline Times, things appear to have gotten worse. People are being ostracised for speaking out. Ethnic minority and women police officers I know have faced repercussions for speaking out, and they're still doing their jobs because they are selfless, amazing, kind human beings. I commend them for it, and my thoughts are with them always. I just do not have the energy to do it any longer, not from the inside anyway. Referring to this month's extraordinary call by the National Black Police Association for Ethnic Minorities to boycott joining, the 39-year-old single mum of two, aged 10 and 11, added, would I recommend an ethnic minority person to join the police force with all the systematic issues and how traumatizing it is? No. I just want my children to join when they are older. No way, absolutely not. This ultimately means things will never change. It's incredibly sad. That is incredibly sad. That's incredibly sad. That's really depressing. When the flat out the question there. But we know that there are major issues, but just being put on the spot with the question, saying who's been in it and everything, and just saying no, you're better off staying away from it. You're better off not joining it. You're better not off being part of it. Where how are you supposed to change an institute that doesn't want to change? This is why I don't believe in reform, because it doesn't want to change. They don't want to change the way they do things. And these issues that they have, they don't want people talking about them. They want them kept quiet, and this is the thing that really infuriates me, is that they don't want this. But the public do want something. They want a police force. We want a police force that will do its job, and they're certainly not doing their job. Never mind just dealing with their own issues within. It's incredibly depressing, to say the least, because the other thing is as well is how do you feel safe now? How can you feel safe wherever you live, wherever you are in the country? How can you possibly feel safe knowing that you have a police force like that, and then a crime is committed, or you're involved in a crime, or you're a victim of a crime? Why would you want to inform and speak to the police in any way, shape, or form? There's just way too much negativity around the police force. Ahmed joined the Met as an admin officer in January 2009, but it was after she moved into the role supporting police officers in investigations using number plates recognition in 2016 that Ahmed realised how toxic the atmosphere was on the force. Some were racist, some would complain about immigration and black people, but nothing was ever done. She recalls citing one example where a young black police officer was himself moved departments after complaining about a racist colleague. Misogyny was the worst thing. They openly called women slags and whores, or would brag about women that they shag. I was thinking, these are men. Women report rapes and sexual assaults too. This is appalling. And that's the thing that really disgusts me. They brag about it like it's some kind of. Let's not go there. Ahmed added, "In the end, it became normal. I wish I had the courage to say something, but I was on a low salary, newly separated with two toddlers, so I kept my head down. That's when my depression and anxiety first set in. I got no help from management." Ahmed said things went downhill after the July 2020 promotion led to a lead data analysis role inside the Met Counter-Terrorism Unit in New Scotland Yard as one of the most senior female agent staff working in counter-terrorism. Despite doing well, Ahmed said she felt isolated as a one-person team in which she would often have to work until 1 a.m. despite being a single mum of two young kids, while white staff in similar positions received support. That's blatant racism right there. The way people treated me as an Asian woman was different to how they would treat a white male officer, in particular after I began to speak out about my negative experiences of working in the Met. Thus, she said the murder of Sarah Everard and the Met's reaction to that moment was a moment of significant change for its female staff. Ahmed, herself a domestic violence survivor, said Mrs. Everard's killing by serving officer Wayne Couzens triggered a lot of feelings with flashbacks to the stuff that I would have had to listen from some male officers, and I kept thinking, Couzens sounds like those guys. Reflecting on where I failed to address the concerning comments, I felt overwhelming guilt as they seemed more ominous than I perceived. Under the spotlight, the Met organised online listening circles, events chaired by senior officers attended by up to 300 people, mainly women, which were an opportunity for the Met staff to say how they felt about Everard's murder and their own experiences working in the Met. Ahmed said it was emotional. Women talked about being sexually assaulted or harassed by male colleagues. Some told how they'd been sexually assaulted in police vehicles. Some female employees spoke of domestic violence by their officer partners. One person relayed an attempted rape. Some really dark stuff. It was the first time Ahmed had spoken at work about her experience both in the public and in life. The way I was treated and changed overnight. I was treated like a disease. I couldn't work out what I had done wrong. I guess it was a feeling that I was a grass. She was not alone. Ahmed said while management in the listening circles would apologise and make promises of change while advising how to make formal complaints, nothing was done, and nothing of the women who would got help or support. If anything, women would pursue complaints were ostracised rather than perpetrators. Most they would do is move the victim to another department. Men facing official complaints would sometimes get support from their boys and be promoted, but for many women it was a career-ending move and such a negative impact on their mental health, while the listening circle's aim was to get people talking, had the opposite effect. Ahmed said that because she continued to challenge racism and misogyny in the Met, her mental health was struggling. One of her seniors she claims, and it wasn't her problem I need to sort out. Another, she said, claiming Ahmed was too sensitive and emotional. There was zero compassion. They gaslighted my living experiences in the Met, saying it was all in the past and we don't have those issues anymore, or suggesting that it was all in my head and I had a breakdown. Ahmed had put an official complaint against two of her managers, the grievance associator, and the Mets themselves, so it didn't go anywhere. Now I see why nobody wants to make an official complaint. You do not win. This is so ridiculous because it's like, who do you go to when those within the force aren't even... What are you supposed to do in this situation? What are you supposed to do in this situation? That's the question. I don't know what is she supposed to do in this situation. It's so depressing. A spokesperson for the Met said, "We are aware of the statement made by Mrs Ahmed following a resignation related to alleged wrongdoings by colleagues. This was investigated under Met grievance procedures in 2022, but there were insufficient evidence to indicate misconduct by any officers or staff members." I have seen... We've had... I know the Met are saying this, but I've covered enough stories to know there's problems within the Met. In late 2022, Ahmed organised an in-person listening circles initially for women only and for domestic violence survivors. What she learnt shocked her. There was a lot of discussions about Freemasons throughout the Met. They said some Masons would talk about it openly, while others had partners in the police who were Masons. One female officer asked to meet me away from work on our day off, and she told me she had been invited by Mansons to a F-buddy circle, kind of like a swinging club, which she said if women partake, they're more likely to get promoted. But she said that since she said no, she'd been ostracised, sidelined, and never been promoted. This is an extremely intelligent woman. Every time she mentioned it to her manager, she was told to keep quiet about it. Another warned me to be careful, as the maintenance could be dangerous and make my life a living hell if I relayed all this to senior management, but nothing happened. The mysterious men-only group is not on the Met's barred list, and members are alleged to aid one another's career progression and protect each other from disciplinary action. When Ahmed shared her resignation letter on LinkedIn, one more person replied to relay a story of a police officer friend who had been targeted by the Masons in the Met in the 1980s. They wrote he had been strongly advised by a training sergeant to join the local Freemason lodge if he wants job security or access to promotion. His views on black people changed from accepting them as our friends to people to specifically target as potential criminals. They seem to be a little change over the years. Wow. This is like this special little group that had power within the Met of some sort, from the looks of it. Remember that, Freemasons, remember that. Ahmed, using her data analysis, also contributed to the Race Action Plan, which aims to build an anti-racist police service and address race disparities affecting people working within or interacting with police. But says some of her seniors didn't like the data I was sharing, and it made them look bad, and I would be shot down and told to hide certain data sets and focus on positives. They would say things were changing, and I was basically told to drop it. In March 2023, Ahmed became a facilitator on an Inspiring Leaders program for ethnic minority officers. She was staggered by how deflated they seemed. Some black constables are the most intelligent, articulated officers I've met, but they were never promoted and felt they never would be. Some told me how they would be stopped and searched on police premises. Others complained about racism in groups, so they were ignored by white officers. Others referred to as troublemakers. Some felt suicidal. Jumped-up disciplinaries were created for those who spoke out. It seemed to be a pattern. I shared this, but management got annoyed. Eventually, in September 2023, the detrimental effect of working in the Met got too much for Ahmed. I was on my cocktail of meds for anxiety and other health complications. Doctors have said they think it was the stress. I was very ill, completely out of it. I was bedridden for 2 months. My kids had to effectively look after themselves. I had a number of meetings about attendance and returning to work, where my boss suggested I look for another job. So for my sanity and to make sure I was still able to look after my kids, I quit. If I hadn't resigned, I feel I would have been pushed out. I felt I no longer had the ability to enact change inside. The only way to do it was from the outside. The Met Police spokesperson said the Met is committed to being anti-discriminatory in all we do, both in relation to our communities and our workforces. Yeah. Why do I have a hard time believing that, given the history? We seek to understand diverse perspectives and treat people according to their needs, creating a workspace that is accessible for and inclusive to all, where everyone can thrive. There is extensive work ongoing to address the valid concerns about disproportionately and provide police officers, staff, all backgrounds with the confidence that they will be supported and success and progress in their careers. This work has been and will be influenced by the experience and insights of our officers, staff and volunteers. Allegations of wrongdoing are taken seriously, and where officers and staff, including those who have left the organisation, have evidence to bring forward, we will always encourage them to do so. Now setting up our own consultancy, Ahmed said the only way things can improve is through the wholesale change of senior management. There are a lot of people in influential positions who are part of the problem, and as such the situation won't change. Making a plea to the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, Ahmed said, I can't imagine how hard that must be to be the Commissioner. There are too many systematic issues for him to change anything anytime soon. Though I would suggest Mr. Rowley think about humanity. He should start listening to people on the ground who have lived experiences. I would implore him to attend listening to circles, and I feel it would make his staff feel listened to. I'm not so sure listening to Sir Mark Rowley would, in my opinion, make a difference. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would not go that. I would not trust him. I don't think it. I don't think he would take this seriously. I don't think he will, guys. If I'm honest, and I just think it's. I think the whole thing needs to be ripped apart. I generally think that the whole thing needs to be ripped apart at this point, because there's just too much nonsense from this. Too much BS. Too much of these allegations and everything, and they keep saying that we're paying attention and responding, and that No, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that that they are dealing with this and they are appropriate. If I've heard more than enough about the Met Police to know that this is not working, and it's time to rip it apart and start afresh. It really, really does need the police force. We need a new police force and rip this one apart and build up a new one. That's what we need in this country. In particular, this is definitely something that we need. So, guys, what did you make of her story? What do you make of the allegations? Do you have maybe some of your own? Maybe some of you are former police officers, and some of you maybe wanted to share your experiences perhaps in the comment section down below. Maybe some of you have a different experience of police forces in where you are, maybe in particular outside of the UK. Let me know your thoughts all and that down in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button, we greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p or joining me on Patreon for exclusive content. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.